Welcome back to the second episode of Kopitiam Council for this week. And we are still sort of half domestic, half international, sort of because it involves Malaysia and a international organization. What is this? What is that international organization, Adi?
So we're talking about the BRICS. So the BRICS is an acronym for a supranational organization composed of mainly led by five countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, which was established in the 2010s, sort of as a way to counterbalance a lot of the U.S. hegemony or the U.S. Led global system. You can argue if it's the global system is US led or not, or Western led. So that's really up for debate. So now, we're talking about this because the Prime Minister, Dr. Shan Ibrahim, of course, we're still talking about him, made an announcement, statement the other day at a speech saying that Malaysia has aspirations to join the BRICS alongside Thailand as well. So this is a lot to unravel, a lot to unpack, because this would have to need to unpack a lot of geopolitical and international politics that has been happening for the past few decades. So I think Plus Kajap is going to give a rundown, like a summary, like a quick rundown, like what is the BRICS. But I think I want to be a bit different here. I want to take on a bit more of a critical and a bit more academic outlook on it, because this is something that I studied back in university. I took a module on the BRICS back in 2016, so a lot of that preparing for this episode required me to go back to some of my lectures, going back to some of my essays that I wrote for the BRICS. So, but I think that's going to be a bit heavier. But before that, I think I'll let Haffiz open this up first, because maybe he can give a more layman's perspective or a more regular guy's perspective.
Yeah, I mean, so basically, BRICS is attempting to create a multipolar world where unipolar is no longer working for the world. So United States has been reaping all the benefits, but the others is just having the scraps of it. So China, Russia, these countries that are originally forming BRICS got sick of it, and they want to create another multipolar. It was originally only just without South Africa, but then South Africa wants in as well. So it's just BRIC at the first, now BRICS, so plural in terms of if you want to see it literally. And what's so exciting here is that we are living in an interesting time where the U.S. hegemony is declining, and something else, something else is debatable. If you want to say China-led power or Russia-led power is on the emerging side. It's that Malaysia caught in the crossroad where how are we gonna navigate this very busy waters where there's a picking sides is not an option here basically. So that's why I think the decision to do that, it's good. And I think from the perspective of Malaysia, I think it gives two significance. The first one, this is to please our one of the biggest trading partner, which is China. If I'm not mistaken, the biggest, or US still the biggest. I'm not so sure, but I think China is right there on top. And secondly, this is also to show that how Malaysia sees UN as no longer efficient in terms of resolving global conflicts. So by joining BRICS, it shows it's unsatisfactory to the United Nations of the conflict of Gaza and Israel. So we heard a lot of how not just Malaysia, other countries as well, and going to or joining BRICS could be a symbolize that in terms of, hey, I join your group, but you are not going to do anything. So I might as well join the other group that say they would have some kind of a solution or alternative to this. So I think that's where Malaysia signaling to the Western hegemony that yes, we might be a small country, might be a medium country, but with this, it will start the domino effect. Even just I think today, Cameroon as well wants to join BRICS. So you can see all these developing countries wants to join BRICS, and that would make up already, because in terms of facts, I think you would go to detail in terms of this. I mean, GDP, all those populations, BRICS is much greater here. Uh, to just compare with other organizations in terms of like G7, for example. So this is to show that Malaysia is something that you cannot just dismiss just like that to the international community, because what we do may not per se have a direct impact to them, but it could be, like I said, indirectly in terms of creating a domino effect here. So there are other countries as well. Maybe after Cameroon, maybe tomorrow, who knows? Most countries in Eastern Europe would join because they're sick of NATO, messing around with their territory here. So I think that's what I would say to the layman in terms of what's happening. Malaysia wants to join BRICS.
Yeah, now if that's the conversation, Lim, and that's what you presented, then I'll just be a bit more nuanced here. Because when the Malaysia's decision to join the BRICS, I think, firstly, it's heavily influenced by Anwar Ibrahim's personal commitment and a relationship with China more so than the organization itself. Because when it comes to Malaysia's relationship with the other BRICS members, mostly it's Brazil and South Africa may not be as relevant, but Russia, India, China is one that is definitely more captivating, more attractive, even more relatable for Malaysia to be involved in. But another thing I would like to point out is that I don't think the BRICS, this is going to be my first disagreement here when it comes to the BRICS, is that I don't think the BRICS is going to act like a security community, much like how NATO is more focused on security. I think the BRICS is still playing by, is not going to shake up too much of the system itself, the global system that we have, which is still very much, how do you say, neoliberal, liberal in nature. I think it's playing, like you said, multipolarity, but still working within the same global system that has been developed. So I think when it comes to the role of the United Nations or the G7 or any other kinds of gatherings, that one I think is still up on the main priority, especially when it comes to the Prime Minister himself, because he did make a speech in the last UN General Assembly highlighting the importance of organizations such as the UN. And we do know his relationship with, let's say, the World Bank and the IMF is quite intimate, given his reputation and his history back in the 90s. So I think when it comes to the BRICS, it's more of an economic community rather than a security community, and it's still playing by the same rules as the current system, international system that we have. However, it's just seeking to remove. It's more about authority and power here. It's trying to decouple certain powers and dominance and authority that the US has enjoyed since the end of the Cold War. So that, in the sense of the Soviet Union. So I think this is more about trying to distribute power more equally amongst more developing countries, or you can call developing countries third world, global south, or what have you, middle powers, or whatever you. But I think that is the point of what the BRICS is meant to be. It's supposed to be a community that is making things a bit more democratic, where countries have more say in how global affairs are taken. So it means giving more weightage to more middle powers compared to always it being US-led or Western-led. So it's sending a message, say, okay, the United Nations, okay, we accept that there are certain limitations in the United Nations, such as the Security Council or even the permanent 5 members here. So it's mostly Western-centric. Not many. There's only one Asian country within the permanent 5 that has veto power. So it's more about reforming, saying that, okay, we need more power distributed evenly across the international community. So it's like giving more voice and more representation towards countries that are not, on the radar of the international system. That, I think, is the main point of why the BRICS here is important as a community. And I think that it should be the appeal for us when it comes to joining the BRICS. It's to have a more amplified voice, because I don't think it challenges the current systems because even look at some of the members, such as India. They are part of other security arrangements with the US and the UK. You have the potential of India being in the AUKUS, and you have the trilateral security communities, which maybe Japan also being involved in. So this overlaps as well a lot with. I mean, the BRICS tends to operate with a message, a joint message, but at the same time, they not operate. They send out the same messages, unified message, but the way they act is not very cohesive or coordinated intentionally by design, because obviously the Chinese and Beijing and New Delhi, Delhi has different aspirations, which they still, which kind of how do you say, overlaps with one another or even comes in conflict with one another. So it's BRICS itself. I don't think it's going to be game changing as of now until it decides that it wants to tackle security issues. That is why I think the idea of international legitimacy and authority comes from, is when organizations are able to resolve security issues. Because we have organizations of economic nature, such as ASEAN, which heavily wants to pivot more on an economic tilt here. The Arab League used to be like that. The African Union also used to be like that. They don't really touch more on security. Security tends to be one of the main, let's say, themes, but it's not the main theme. So that is so far. Before I go even further, Haffiz, do you want to jump in?
Yeah. And how do you see like mutually benefited from this? Like, what are the consideration for the BRICS to see Malaysia as a value added to the coalition?
I think it's more so just the role of middle powers in general. It's not just Malaysia, Thailand as well. So it's more like, okay, if you have, let's say, five, right? Let's say this is the West, right? And then you have this is one, basically, which is the middle powers all united together, right? So it kind of beats out the five in a way, balances out, counterbalances. So I think that is the consideration that is made strategically. Economically, maybe because of trade relations with the two of the BRICS founding states, such as China and India, they would definitely weigh in on that, saying that, okay, we have a valuable trade relationship, economic relationship with Malaysia, but maybe for South Africa, Brazil, and Russia, it might be a different story. However, if more countries like Malaysia, such as Thailand, okay, that adds more for India and China. If, let's say, in South America, more wants to be part of it. So that's equal consideration for Brazil, or even so, and the same goes with South Africa. So that, I think, is the value added. It is the value of consensus. It's the value of how do you say, the value of getting together to say something as a united front. That is, I think, the real value when it comes to BRICS, and having a united economic stance. If everyone is able to play by the rules and play by the messaging that BRICS wants to, in terms of decoupling and de-dollarizing and moving away from the US, then I think that is the value really added here. Is the value of numbers here, and to change policies to be more equitable, to be less dependent on the US economy or even the US dollar, and to be more spread out. I think that is the main important thing.
Yeah, basically just mirror whatever the only options that we have. So like before, we must trade oil in dollars. Now Saudi just ended the dollarizations of selling oil in dollars. So maybe if Saudi applications is accepted to be part of the BRICS, I think, yeah, like you said, de-dollarization would be the economic benefit. So the members of the BRICS would have that advantage, and as well, like where we see sanctions could be bypassed here if you're BRICS members. So Russia is one of the most highly sanctioned country. So they would use other country members to bypass this so-called sanctions, and would give a benefit to members that can help Russia to bypass this. Another example that just happened today is that China meeting with the EU trade union high officials, that China demands the to retract the tariff on their EVs. So United States is giving the tariff, and now maybe China don't want to deal with America right now. So they're gonna deal with EU first, and let's see if EU wants to do that, because they know very well that if they not go with the Chinese suggestions, uh, country like Germany will mostly suffered from this, because China will do the same towards American goods. I mean EU goods as well, especially cars coming in from Germany. So I think this is a good way of seeing how BRICS can play especially into the chip war that we have right now. So people say that America, China fighting. So who will win this some sort of AI chip war, that who gonna supply to all these countries? And now, if we are in the BRICS, we can expand more in terms of how we can reach all these countries. Like you mentioned, we may not have good relevance with South Africa and other countries, but maybe if you know um, Malaysia is one of the members of the BRICS, then with the prowess of that we have, the strength that we have as a chip manufacturer, what also Anwar Ibrahim aspired to be, then we could be that country that being looked at, in the BRICS, that hey, we have Malaysia, and Malaysia can be the supplier to all the BRICS economy. I think that's the economic advantage also that I could see in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I want to address some concerns that people do have with the BRICS, because I have seen that if Malaysia was to join the BRICS, it means that we are declaring, in a way, loyalty. I'm being very reductionist on this, but declaring loyalty mostly to China. Now, the issue with this kind of idea is that it doesn't mean China becomes dominant. BRICS is not in any way trying to reshape the global order. China, how it works in the BRICS, is not the same as how it works domestically. Now, it's kind of ironic that some might say it's ironic that BRICS is forcing for more neoliberalist ideas, democratic ideas, which ironically it's Western centric. But in doesn't mean that it has to impact their domestic, and because Russia, China, very authoritarian, very state-led, not very the most democratic places. I mean, we just saw Putin win the presidential election. So, but it doesn't mean that they do not want to play by the ideas of democracy, democratization, and liberalism as well, which they will continue, because this is what, if you want to follow the case of China, this is what they've been doing for the past 30 years since Deng Xiaoping became the premier. He embraced a lot of the Western liberal markets, the liberalism ideas, capitalism as well. So they do want to play by those rules. And I think they're going to continue playing by those rules that we are accustomed to in the terms of the international political system. And so it'll just be, for those that are worried, I think it'll be more or less the same. It's just that there will be more emphasis, economically speaking, on China rather than the US. So there's no worry that it's going to be like, oh, we'll be a puppet or once again a vassal to Beijing. No, because that is where the other BRICS members, such as India, plays a balancing role as well. Because India has its, even though it has members as a BRICS, it also has its ties to the West as well, which it is seeking to expand now that under the Modi administration, even though just the recent election, India and the West has always had a very strong relationship. So Malaysia has a concern, you can always bring it up to another member who is just as equally powerful to counterbalance in India. So there's no worry about, you cannot see BRICS in that lens of, oh, it's just China, because there are other players here to incorporate. So I think in terms of the fear mongering when it comes to BRICS, I don't think we have to worry so much about that. But if we believe that the BRICS will be used as a way to resolve security issues that the UN and NATO has failed, that is also, I think, very wishful and utopian thinking, because the BRICS did make a stance on Libya, they did make a stance on Syria, which was very They did make a unified message, but they did things in their own way. So there's still that flexibility in BRICS, and I think Malaysia is part of it. We can still be more flexible in our messaging. It doesn't mean that just because, or what we do in actions itself, just because the BRICS says it, doesn't mean it reflects exactly the same of domestically. Like I mentioned, like, okay, the BRICS demands that more democratization in the UN. Doesn't mean that China is going to be more democratic now, is it, or more liberal in terms of letting the public have more access instead of it being the private ownership being more important compared to private ownership. So there, I mean, BRICS does not interfere really with domestic considerations unless the member states wants to be influenced by that. But of course, one thing leads to another. Maybe inculcating the ideas of democracy, democratization internationally might inculcate it domestically. That's always a relationship that's very open. So if that's the case, then maybe that's a good thing for Malaysia as well, because we do struggle with democracy and liberal ideas and liberalism, values of liberalism that we've adopted from the West. So maybe that can help change some of the architecture domestically as well. So there's possibilities being thrown up, but it's only as important as how much importance we give to the organizations in BRICS. It's just like ASEAN. ASEAN is only as important as we make it out to be. So how Malaysia makes it out to be.
Yeah, I think the demonizations of the comparison between BRICS and other gatherings, G7 or whatever, I think it's being played out by the Western media that some course, like wants to deter all these on the fence countries to join BRICS, because like we mentioned, it's totally for economic benefit, and those who can see it in terms of how they can benefit from this would definitely going to join it. And like you mentioned, like the ASEAN, like because ASEAN is also another gatherings, and then why no medias talk about, like, hey, this is a Southeast Asian little group that wants to create a new world order or something, some sort, because you might laugh today, because Southeast Asia will be one of the largest in terms of population in the future as well, like with Indonesia with hundreds of millions, with Vietnam emerging, Thailand, Philippines as well. So yeah, I mean, it's not a possibility in the future, but why no media talk about it in such a fashion, but why they talk about BRICS in such a way? So I think the demonizations is of course perpetrated by the Western media, and this is I think classic trick from the all this book to deter all the countries from joining, and to um, make it become uncertainty for the others to join. Do you have a last remark on BRICS?
Yeah, like when you mentioned how it is very ironic, because when they talk about democracy and representation and all that. So when the middle powers wants more representation in itself, then no, we cannot have that because it's not Western led. So that is the irony. I feel. I mean, you can argue that as well. That's very open to debate, and scholars are definitely going to be arguing about this, whether or not it's true or not. But I think that's up to interpretation as well. So I think in closing, I think we can as Malaysians, approach the BRICS with some cautious optimism, because one, it does give us more integration with the other global south or even middle powers, not just in the region but globally as well. So if South Africa is able to bring more African countries in, or if Brazil can bring more South American members, then okay, it gives us a more connected organization that can balance out the Western powers as well. However, I don't think we have to, at the same time, we have to caution that the BRICS is not a savior in terms of challenging the Western system, because BRICS still operates within the system that's already perpetrated by the West. We're still going to be playing by the same rules. It's just that some players will get additional benefits. Already. More players will have the same benefits to play at an even level playing field. That is how I see it. So it gives us the necessary platform to compete, to be able to, as middle powers or the global south, whatever, to have more representation. So that is the main takeaway for me when it comes to the BRICS here. So the BRICS isn't going to challenge world order, but at the same time, it's not going to be the savior, be all end all organization that will bring the most benefits. No, no, no. It's not simple as that. And lastly, okay, just one more point, a bit different point, is that we have to take note that we cannot fall into the same Western perspective, the Western media perspective. They see that they see China in a very unitary way, in a very single-minded way. That okay, whatever China does domestically, it projects that internationally. No, it doesn't. It doesn't work like that. How many times has China, even domestically, they do all kinds of these authoritarian things, but internationally, they're very open. They're very how do you say, cooperative. Even the relationship between U.S. and China, no matter how much you want to say that there is like rivalry or conflict or whatever, they still cooperate when necessary. They cooperate where it is mutually beneficial, unless you have like a personal gripe against China. I mean, you compare Biden to Trump, you say that, they're completely different things. But Biden continues the same policies as Trump, the Trump administration, when it comes to handling China. So you can say all these things domestically, right? Internationally, you do different. You do different. That's just the nature of how the international system we work in. So it's not what happens locally. It's not a mirror of how a country portrays itself in the international sphere. So that is something to just be in mind of when you want to discuss something regional or international, like the BRICS itself. Maybe you can apply this kind of thinking to things such as NATO or SEO. So that's one thing to consider. But also, just another benefit I think we can have, one more, is that if we do become closer to the BRICS in terms of China, it does give us access to not just because we haven't really accessed the World Bank or IMF. Some say that those are Western centric. That's why they did not want the Prime Minister to go to them in the 90s. Well, China and the BRICS offers the AIIB, which is the Asian Investment Infrastructure Bank, which operates in the same principles and the same rules as the World Bank and the IMF. So the alternatives are here with BRICS as well. We have alternatives. If you don't want to go to Western, okay, then you go BRICS. So in the sense, you're not hitting a brick in the wall when it comes to just negotiating with the West or the BRICS. So that's just the last point.
Yeah, so the takeaway that you should get from this is that any fear mongering about BRICS or even about United Nations or G7, please do your own due diligence, because there's a lot of propaganda out there, and one way to find out is that to vary your sources. Watch CGTN, not just watch CNN or Al Jazeera, and get your news from Ground News. Ground News, if you're listening, I'm just promoted your site, so we'll be looking forward for you get some sponsor for us. So that's it for Malaysia about to join BRICS. We will revisit this topic if our applications is successful. So that would be a different day, or maybe months or years from now. I don't know. So next up, we can talk about a very international issue, but once again about Putin. We talk a lot about Putin, isn't it, Adi, in Kopitiam Council? So yeah, that's coming up next.